Avon and Clifford. We won't have to rob the Union Depository. They'll give us a key. Come into planning with your crew when you're ready, and let's get it done.
The sound of a 7-barrel gun, plus a whole branch of Israel ground vehicles are out in the fresh wind of change update. If you are looking for something unique in addition...
And for a while anyway, and take a different path. In fact, a very different path, as he decided to open up a hot dog stand, eventually working his way up to setting up upscale restaurants.
I've got news, very, very bad news. We found Avon. He's got control of a nuclear missile base inside Mount Chiliad. I've spoken to Rackman. She wants us to infiltrate the missile base, take down Avon, and destroy Clifford. Easy, right? Payment's gonna come through once the job is done. Gather the crew and head back to the facility. We're gonna end this fucker once and for all.
The nickname Chef, partly because he provided catering for the Kremlin, but mostly thanks to the other operations he was setting up for the future Russian president. In addition to being involved with Russia's infamous Internet Research Agency, aka the Russian Trolls, spearheading disinformation campaigns online, Prigozhin was intimately involved in setting up the Wagner Group. While it might sound like a boring venture capital firm, the Wagner Group was actually in the business of recruiting private military, otherwise known as mercenaries, to work in Ukraine. Sources say it was named after Hitler's favorite composer. As you might have guessed about a mercenary group named after one of Hitler's favorite things, the Wagner Group did some pretty terrible things as an organization. Sponsored by the Russian state and co-founded by Dmitry Utkin, the Wagner Group commenced operations in 2014 in order to support the Russian annexation of Crimea by sending unofficial soldiers to invade the region, keep it guarded, and lend support to pro-Russian groups in other parts of Ukraine, including the Donbass. Who were these unofficial soldiers? Accounts vary, but it seems that even though the Wagner Group started with a whole lot of former Russian military in order to swell their ranks during the war in Ukraine, a good chunk of them were men recruited from jail. In June 2023, Prigozhin himself stated there are 25,000 of us, though that number only includes those who have survived and are still serving. Prigozhin would offer imprisoned men pardons and a small sum of money in order for them to perform 6-month military rotations in Ukraine. Several journalists and Ukrainian civilians allege that the men of the Wagner Group have committed war crimes and unnecessary violence against civilians, winding an especially harsh road through eastern Ukraine. After Russia's initial military humiliation in its war against Ukraine, the Wagner Group actually helped Putin make several gains, but most importantly being responsible for taking the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut. So how did the relationship between Prigozhin and Putin sour? As the war in Ukraine went on longer than anyone expected, becoming costlier in terms of lives and hunger by the day, Prigozhin became increasingly irate at the Russian state's failure to adequately supply him his men, directing his anger mostly at Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. Then, Putin supported a state effort to make Russia's paramilitary groups, including the Wagner Group, sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense. Prigozhin balked at the idea of refusing to cede control of his men to the state. Then, in the span of one long, confusing day on June 23rd, Prigozhin told the Russian people that the reasons for the war in Ukraine had always been a lie propagated by a small group of scumbags who had deceived both Putin and the people. Though he initially seemed loyal still to Putin, through this announcement, he later stated the official Russian military had attacked the men of the Wagner Group in Ukraine. The Russian state, of course, denied such a thing, and Prigozhin didn't really produce any proof of such a thing. So no one knew who to believe between the two equally unbelievable sides. Nevertheless, he decided to start a long military march toward the Russian capital, which he saw as a march for justice, what Putin saw as, well, a rebellion and an invasion. Everyone who has been closely monitoring the contents of the Russian army will not be surprised to learn that Prigozhin entered military headquarters within 24 miles of the Moscow area and waltzed into the center of the city with little apparent resistance. A furious Putin addressed the nation on Russian television the next morning and stated the following: "What we are facing is precisely treason." He insisted that those who had rebelled against his authority in the military would pay. Prigozhin, curiously, still stated that he was loyal to Putin and simply vehemently disagreed with the other members of the state's defense apparatus. But after Putin's television address, he seemed to aim his anger at Putin as well. A quick and out-of-left-field intervention by Belarusian leader and Putin ally Alexander Lukashenko seemingly stalled a quickly spiraling situation in Russia. Lukashenko would offer Prigozhin safe haven in Belarus, where he would avoid criminal charges as long as he stopped his march against Putin and the Russian leadership. Any members of the Wagner Group who wanted to officially sign with the Russian Defense Ministry could do so, otherwise they were free to go. This quick and seemingly peaceful resolution puzzled leaders and journalists worldwide. Would Putin and the Russian government, known for its apparently very clumsy detractors experiencing frequent demonstrations and coincidental radiation poisonings, let such a challenge to their rule go unpunished? Would Prigozhin really safe and free? Would he disappear, or would he continue in other ways to challenge the Russian state? Well, the answer seemingly came last month. Though earlier in the week, Prigozhin had released a video which showed him in Africa. On Wednesday evening, he was on the passenger list of an Embraer jet flying from Moscow to St. Petersburg. About 200 miles north of Moscow, while crossing the Tver region, locals heard two loud bangs, and video footage showed the small passenger jet plummeting toward the ground with smoke billowing out behind it. Eventually, the plane crashed and broke out into flames. 10 people were listed on the manifest, 7 passengers and 3 crew members, including Prigozhin and Wagner Group co-founder Dmitry Utkin. So far, Utkin, along with a few other people on board the plane, including pilots Alexei Levshin and Rustem Karamov, and one of the men listed as a passenger on the plane is Yevgeny Prigozhin, known to most of the world as the man who led the Wagner Group rebellion against Vladimir Putin in June of 2023. But how did Prigozhin go from a criminal and a hot dog stand owner to one of Putin's long-term confidants and then come to openly rebel against him? What really caused the crash of Prigozhin's private jet? And most importantly, what will the Wagner Group do next? We dove into this situation as it was developing to find out more. Prigozhin's always been a shadowy figure. Not much is known about his childhood and teenage years in Russia, although by the time he was in his 20s, he was already involved in fairly serious crimes. This resulted in him going to prison for 9 years for robbery and fraud. After Prigozhin was released back to the streets of St. Petersburg in the 1990s, he decided to leave his life of crime behind, for a while anyway, and take a different path. In fact, a very different path, as he decided to open up a hot dog stand, eventually working his way up to setting up upscale restaurants throughout the city. One of his most famous frequent guests was none other than Vladimir Putin. Since success is all about who you know, especially in an oligarchy, Prigozhin's ties with Putin and his other high-profile Russian officials got him huge catering contracts for state services like schools and the army. However, food isn't all he was cooking up. Prigozhin eventually earned the nickname Putin Chef, partly because he provided catering in the Kremlin, but mostly thanks to the other operations he was setting up for the future Russian president. In addition to being involved with Russia's infamous Internet Research Agency, aka the Russian Troll, spearheading disinformation online, Prigozhin was instrumental in setting up the Wagner Group. While it might sound like a foreign venture capital, the Wagner Group is actually in the business of recruiting private military, otherwise known as mercenaries, to work in Ukraine. Sources say it was named after Hitler's favorite composer. As you might have guessed about a mercenary group named after one of Hitler's favorite things, the Wagner Group did some pretty terrible things as an organization. Sponsored by the Russian state and co-founded by Dmitry Utkin, the Wagner Group commenced operations in 2014 in order to support the Russian annexation of Crimea by sending unofficial soldiers to invade the region, keep it guarded, and lend support to pro-Russian groups in other parts of Ukraine, including the Donbass. Who were these unofficial soldiers? Accounts vary, but it seems that even though the Wagner Group started with a whole lot of former Russian military, in order to swell their ranks, starting to bring Ukraine from jail. In June 2023, Prigozhin himself stated there are 25,000 of these, though that number only includes those who have survived and are still serving. Prigozhin would operate in prison and Prigozhin's case money in order 6 month military rotations in Ukraine, 7 journalists and civilians alike.
Zo ben ik groot fan van de Wim-Hof-methode. Dat is natuurlijk warm voor in de zomer. Is dit een heerlijke zwemvijver. Het is zomer. Ja, heerlijk. Ja,
Supermarkt is een loop.
Zo, hij is klaar. Dus, ik kan beginnen. Zo, ik ben klaar voor het zicht. Ik ben gratis staan. Dan zie ik niet meer mee. Wel, maak een afspraak. Zien elkaar. Hier is het zo, maar het is ook 4. Ja, meer van.
Unnecessary violence against civilians, winding an especially harsh road through eastern Ukraine. After Russia's initial military humiliation in its war against Ukraine, the Wagner Group actually helped Putin make several gains, but most importantly being responsible for taking the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut. So how did the relationship between Prigozhin and Putin sour? As the war in Ukraine went on longer than anyone expected, becoming costlier in terms of lives and money by the day, Prigozhin became increasingly irate at the Russian state's failure to adequately supply him and his men, directing his anger mostly at Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu. Then, Putin supported a state effort to make Russia's paramilitary groups, including the Wagner Group, sign contracts with the Ministry of Defense. Prigozhin balked at the idea of refusing to cede control of his state. Then, in the span of one long, confusing day on June 23rd, Prigozhin told the Russian people that the reasons for the war in Ukraine had always been a lie propagated by a small group of scumbags who had deceived both Putin and the people. Though he initially seemed loyal still to Putin, through this announcement, he later stated the official Russian military had attacked the men of the Wagner Group in Ukraine. The Russian state, of course, denied such a thing, and Prigozhin didn't really produce any proof of such a thing. So no one knew who believed between the two equally unbelievable sides. Nevertheless, he decided to start a long military march toward the Russian capital, which he saw as a march for justice, but Putin saw as, well, a rebellion and an invasion. Everyone who has been closely monitoring the contents of the Russian army will not be surprised to learn that Prigozhin entered military headquarters within 124 miles of the Moscow area and waltzed into the center of the city with little apparent resistance. As furious, Putin addressed the nation on Russian television the next morning and stated that what we are facing is precisely treason, and insisted that those who had rebelled against his authority in the military would pay. Prigozhin, curiously, still stated that he was loyal to Putin and simply vehemently disagreed with the other members of the state's defense apparatus. But after Putin's television address, he seemed to use anger at Putin as well. A quick and out-of-left field intervention by Belarusian leader and Putin ally Alexander Lukashenko seemingly stalled a quickly spiraling situation in Russia. Lukashenko would offer Prigozhin safe haven in Belarus, where he would avoid criminal charges as long as he stopped his march against Putin and the Russian leadership. Any members of the Wagner Group who wanted to officially sign with the Russian Defense Ministry could do so, otherwise they were free to go. This quick and seemingly peaceful resolution puzzled leaders and journalists worldwide, with Putin and the Russian government, known for its apparently very clumsy detractors experiencing frequent defenestrations and quite coincidental radiation poisonings. Let such a challenge to their rule go unpunished? Was Prigozhin really safe and free? Would he disappear, or would he continue in other ways to challenge the Russian state? Well, the answer seemingly came last month. So earlier in the week, Prigozhin released a video that showed him in Africa. On Wednesday evening, he was on the passenger list of an Embraer jet flying from Moscow to St. Petersburg, about 200 miles north of Moscow. While crossing the Tver region, locals heard two loud bangs, and video footage showed the small passenger jet plummeting toward the ground with smoke billowing out behind it. Eventually, the plane crashed and broke out into flames. 10 people were listed on the manifest, 7 passengers, 3 crew members, including Prigozhin and Wagner Group co-founder Dmitry Utkin. So far, Utkin, along with a few other people on board the plane, and been confirmed again. Another test suggested that precaution